In the humid stillness of a Gulf Coast summer, on July 11, 1977, two Delchamps grocery store employees took on the ordinary chore of a bank deposit. They would never return. I'm your host, Stu Donald. Let's head to the Delta. Young stock clerk Richard Hacker and part-time cashier Terry Stainback, a young wife with a life beyond the register, stepped out of Delchamps store number 10 in the Forest Hills neighborhood of Mobile, Alabama, never to return. At first, the city prayed, and they searched. 11 days of silence until the forest spoke. A shotgun leaves no doubt. That fateful Monday afternoon, they left the safety of the store with the day's earnings in hand. 13 days later, their decomposing bodies were discovered in a remote forested stretch of West Mobile County, each killed by a single shotgun blast to the head. Their bodies discarded like an afterthought, bound, helpless, executed in the dirt. And for what? $4,000? Once a familiar name along the central Gulf Coast, Delchamps stood as a testament to regional pride and family-run enterprise. Headquartered in Mobile, the company wove itself into the daily rhythms of life across Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Florida. By 1997, its legacy had grown to 118 stores, each a quiet anchor in its community. Yet that same year marked the end of its independence. With its stock once publicly traded under the symbol DLCH on NASDAQ, Delchamps was acquired, its name slipping into memory as another chapter closed in the story of Southern commerce. In 1997, Delchamps was purchased by Mississippi-based Jitney Jungle as part of what is known as a bankruptcy engineering. Though not always in violation of the law, bankruptcy engineering, sometimes called strategic bankruptcy, treads a murky path ethically. Its morality is often questioned, and its use can stir serious legal scrutiny, especially when intent blurs the line between shrewd calculation and outright manipulation. In 1999, the plan was realized when Jitney Jungle filed for bankruptcy. But that's a tale for another time. For more than 2 years after the slayings, investigators had no leads, no suspects. The case was as cold as the pine-scented wind that rustled over the clearing where the bodies lay. That changed in December 1979. A call came in from Tampa, Florida, from the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department. Detective Willie Estes of Mobile answered. The caller had information from a confidential informant about a double homicide. 2 victims abducted from a store, driven miles away, then murdered with a shotgun. What followed was a trail of phone calls, interviews, and cross-country flights. Names were whispered, one of them Larry Stahl. But it was the mention of a second suspect, someone whose mother worked at the same Delchamps, that turned the spotlight to David Lee Waldrop. Detectives from the Mobile County Sheriff's Department followed the lead to Tampa, and then to Kansas, chasing faint trails and faded memories. A man named Charles Roberts emerged as the informant's source. He told of a barroom confession. Luke Stahl, Larry's brother, allegedly recounted the crime. According to him, Waldrop had been the triggerman. The gun and vehicle both belonged to Waldrop's father, borrowed while the parents vacationed. Detectives returned to Mobile. On January 4, 1980, without a warrant, they knocked on Waldrop's door. They asked him to come downtown. He complied. When he tried to make a phone call, an officer pressed a finger on the receiver cradle. You could call from the station, they said. He wasn't under arrest, but he wasn't free to go either. Once at the sheriff's office, after having heard his Miranda rights, Waldrop began to talk. First cautiously, then with chilling detail. He told them how he and Larry Stahl had abducted Hacker and Stainback at gunpoint, how he had tied their arms, how Stahl burned the deposit bag and took the cash, how the shotgun, purchased illegally months prior, was fired twice into the victims, how the murder weapon was buried in a landfill, and how, shortly afterward, Waldrop quietly left Alabama for North Carolina. Waldrop was charged with capital murder, 2 counts, and his first conviction was overturned on appeal. But in 1984, in a retrial on the same indictment, a jury again found him guilty. He was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. A seemingly ordinary man, a family grocery store, a silent ride into the woods, and a justice system trying to bring light to a case long cloaked in shadow. The state of Alabama versus David Lee Waldrop is not just the record of a legal proceeding. It is a chilling reminder of the fragile line between familiarity and horror, of how small details, a mother's workplace, a barroom slip, can unravel secrets once buried under years of silence. Okay, for a little perspective, I'm out at the shopping center where the disappearance actually occurred. In front of me is the building that used to be the Delchamps grocery store. And as you move across the parking lot this way, you'll see these other two businesses. The one on the left was the paint store. The one on the right was the bank they were walking to. So between here and there, they disappeared. Now those are the facts according to court documents. The lead detective on the case was Willie Estes, or as I knew him, Uncle Cookie. He was a fine detective and a good man who was married, at least for a while, to my father's half-sister. I was 9 when this crime occurred, and while I'm sure my father helped on the case, to what degree I do not know. The fate of Hacker and Stainback was probably something my father wanted to shield from his young son. I can remember that a neighbor and I were convinced we could solve the disappearance. We were very familiar with the store. Heck, I lived right across the street from the store until we moved out to Sims. Of course, I wasn't even 2 yet, so I don't hardly remember that. The kindergarten I attended was about a half-mile away on the same road. My first banking account was at the same bank the victims were walking to make that deposit. When the news came in that they had been found dead, we were all saddened. The whole community was. And this event just marked one more loss of my innocence.
Hey y'all, click the subscribe button and the like button at the bottom of the screen. Would you mind tapping them for me one time?